Welcome to the ShowShow with your host, Uncle Wobbly. I am Uncle Wobbly. Hello. This is sort of an interesting show, I guess. Not really, but just since the last few shows I've done, I've actually put them on the internets for the world, and almost 10 people have seen them, or at least one of them. The first 3 episodes. One fellow was even kind enough to comment and share some cool opinions, and so yeah, and now I'm officially public and online. There's no turning back. Sort of feel horrible. It's not just that. I don't know. I'm just not having a good day. I'm very hungover. Did stupid stuff last night. I'm not doing anything productive. One of my friends died. You know, of course I'm sad about that. And selfishly, I'm like, the clock's running out. We're all gonna die. So anyways, let's review some movies. That's what we do here. I have a long list of movies I want to watch, and I always randomly pick one, and we watch it, and I review it. And it becomes this terribly produced show that you're currently watching. And yeah, and so I've randomly picked a TV show. Hold on, I may have fixed it. No, we're good. I randomly picked a show to watch, a movie, and it's The Terminal, with starring Tom Hanks. You know, I don't really know why I put this on there, like why I want to watch it, why it's something I feel like I need to watch, but I have a theory. And that's that there's this. I really like Catch Me If You Can. That movie, Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio are in it. It's a really good movie. It's like it's a really good story, and it's like a true story, and it's really interesting, cool, thought provoking. I thought, and but there's some really good scene in there with Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio in an airport, and somehow the positivity I feel about that scene, I realize it's just sort of naturally transferred to. A movie about Tom Hanks in an airport called Terminal, and The Aviator, which is about Howard Hughes, but it's about airplanes and stuff, and it's about and it's starring DiCaprio. So there's a little bit of irrational just bleed over that makes me gonna watch this movie. Also, I really like airports. I really like being in the terminal. I've been stranded in the terminal before. It's like, it's everything. It's like the way that there's just all kinds of people coming together from all over the world and going fast, everybody going everywhere. And it's comfortable, and there are restaurants and bars, and everyone's kind of on their best behavior, and everyone spent a lot of money to be there, so it's kind of like important. No one's really fucking around. Yeah. I just feel connected to everything when I'm in the airport. But anyway, so that's one of the reasons. The movie, I think, is about being stranded in the airport or something. So yeah, that's one of the things. That's what we're going to watch. And why we're going to watch it. We're going to watch The Terminal. So I guess I'll see you soon. Now this scene will symbolize me watching The Terminal. welcome back. So, yeah, The Terminal. Just watched The Terminal. But before I get into The Terminal, I had an administrative note, sort of. 3 episodes back, the first thing I reviewed was the television show Justified. And I gave it a bad review. And one of the things I said, I only watched 1 episode, and I didn't like it, and it seemed like it was, I don't know, I did research a little, and it looked like it was representative of the whole thing, and that if I kept watching it, I was pretty much going to keep on getting the same experience. Specifically, I said, it looks like some series are known for like clicking and kind of changing, and at some point down the line, or sometimes like another cool character comes along that like really pumps life into the series. Well, but that didn't seem to be the case. I was wrong on both counts, from what I hear. I've talked to a couple people with opinions I respect. Apparently Justified, later on, at some unspecified point, becomes less episodic, which generally is a good thing for a series. If a series is episodic, by becoming less episodic, that means the characters have reached a point where instead of telling a different story every week, the story starts needing to be about the story becomes more arcy and more, it's usually a good thing. Every time I've ever seen a series do that, it's always been good. Also, Patton Oswalt joins the cast, I guess, which I didn't realize, down the line. And, like, I don't know anything about his character, besides that it's a character played by Patton Oswalt, which, I don't know, probably limits the possibilities some in good ways. But that's kind of enough for me. That guy is pretty charming. I always like to see that guy do shit. So yeah, sadly, I think I need to re-review that at some point. And the technicality I'm going to leave myself here is it's all still on the list, and if the number generator randomly selects it again, then I'll watch more of it and get another review and do like a sequel. I don't know what I'll do if like I review something and I'm satisfied with the review and the number generator picks it again. I don't want to take stuff off the list just because it's like history and anyways, that's neither here nor there. So let's get on to The Terminal. So quick synopsis to start. The theme is it's like kind of Kafka-esque. And I've never read Kafka, but I'm an English major, I know what Kafka-esque means. It's about like administrative, surreal insanity. Just people being stuck in administrative holes and like people following meaningless rules that are insane with meaningless conclusions. And so specifically it's a story of a guy played by Tom Hanks from some country that doesn't exist called Krakosia, and it's like a fictional Eastern Bloc country, and he's in the airport, and he just arrives in the U.S., and just as that's all happening, there's a coup in his country, and his government is temporarily overthrown, and he is essentially a man without a country, legally speaking, and the guy sort of in charge of the terminal is sort of doesn't know what to do with him, and basically says, all right, well, until we sort this out, you can just live in the international part of the terminal. And so he commences to do that. He doesn't speak English basically at all, so they make it pretty clear that he doesn't understand what people are telling him, except he kind of gets the gist eventually. And so he's there for a little while before eventually the guy who's in charge, who sort of put him in this situation, is like under review to like get promoted. He's like, I guess, acting, whatever, and suddenly he's under extra scrutiny, and the last thing he needs is this guy living in his terminal who has no, has fallen between the cracks or something. So he wants him to just go, and I guess like he's sort of surprised the guy just hasn't left yet illegally, which
it kind of fluctuates between whether or not that's possible as the movie goes. Sometimes it seems to be guarded. He's like, why hasn't the guy left yet? And then he arranges to make, he tells him that he's going to pull the guards off, and he arranges to make the guards, like, give him like a 5-minute window where there's no guards, and tell him, you can just go. It's, not legal and stuff, but just go. But so I guess he needed to do that, which begs the question, like, why would he be surprised that he hasn't tried to leave yet if there are guards that won't let him? But whatever. So, but he thinks about it and then decides not to, because I guess he's just uncomfortable. He notices there's a camera watching him, and I guess he's just uncomfortable. You really don't have a good view into Tom Hanks's character's head, really. But for some reason he decides not to, either out of, like, not wanting to break the rules or fear that it's a trap or something. And I guess it was a trap, because the dude was actually planning. He just wants him to become legally someone else's problem. And if he walks through those doors, then he's broken the law, and you can, like, have the local terminal police or whatever detain him and report it, which he was going to do, and then it's not his problem anymore. But, so, like... Oh, and also, like, obviously, like, his country, because of the coup, like, he can't go back. They can't fly him back because that country shut down all airports or something. Anyways, so he's stuck in this terminal, and he immediately just sort of starts, I guess I'm living in the terminal now, and starts trying to do that and figure out life in the terminal, and he doesn't, they gave him, like, then it just becomes a very long movie about the stuff he does while he's there. Eventually he kind of learns English more or less, and he figures out, like, he goes through several things just trying to eat. Like, they gave him, like, a few days vouchers that he loses in the beginning, and so then, like, there's this little side thing where there's a machine that gives you a quarter for returning buggies, and, like, people leave the buggies all over the airport, so he winds up getting quarters that way. And eventually he winds up getting money under the table, cash money, working as a contractor for some, like, construction teams that are working on parts of the airport. And then he forms relationships with people who work there, who eventually start kind of helping him get by and have food and stuff. And he forms... and eventually he meets this flight attendant girl, and she becomes his love interest. And she's torn between, I guess there's some other guy, some married man who she's kind of in love with, and who's like, she's his mistress, and she's kind of like in this holding pattern of her own. You see this whole, like, waiting theme coming through. She's waiting for something to happen with this married man, I guess. And her life in general. And I guess other bad choice men, it kind of implies too. So he forms a very slow-moving romantic thing with her, sort of. She's just kind of randomly there sometimes, and then a lot of times she just bumps into him, and then eventually he's kind of on board and starts arranging to make things happen more and stuff. But, so that's kind of going throughout the film. There's, like, basically it's kind of this big blur once things get really set up, that he's, like, in the terminal, and he's got all the shit he just kind of does, and while he's there, it's like, there's this love interest thing that's always kind of, it will move forward an inch, every now and then. There's his friendships. He has 3 main friendships. There's, like, a guy who, I guess, does the baggage, who's, like, a security kind of guy. And he's pretty nondescript, but he becomes one of this guy's poker buddies. But that's his group. He's got a group of guys who work in the airport that he plays poker with. And then there's, like, this Irish, or, this sort of charming, attractive fella who supplies him with food eventually, like meals from planes. And he's nice, and he falls in love with, like, some officer or some lady who does, like, paperwork. That he winds up kind of playing, not really Cyrano, but being Tom Hanks winds up being a go-between for this guy and this girl. So there's like that romance that kind of builds, and then there's this like cranky Indian janitor guy who is crazy and cranky and mean, and slowly they win you over and they become friends, not enemies anymore. And so like those three relationships he builds, and there's his money struggle, and then there's the other big one, which is the guy who runs the airport who hates him, kind of irrationally. Like he seems to like him just fine until like I don't know. He hates the guy because he's fucking up his life, sort of, or because he's holding him back, and like he gets more and more sinister as it goes on. This little bureaucratic guy who's created this ridiculous situation. And in the end, we start to see more about what really drives him. The Tom Hanks character. He eventually kind of becomes a almost local celebrity in the airport. Everyone loves him, and he's everybody's friend. And finally, in the end, after all sorts of these plot arcs run around and do circles and stuff, his country finds peace, and I guess that, and he has like legal status and stuff, and they wrap things up with all his relationships. And all of his friends they make sacrifices for him. And he's free to go home. And then like the big central thing is, does he go home or does he walk out the doors to go to New York City? Apparently we figured out by now that like his big goal is to go to New York City. He has this one thing he's supposed to do for his dad. He has to go. His dad has all these jazz musicians get their autographs, and he's gotten this huge list, and there's just one guy left, and his dad died, and he promised he'd do it, and so there's this jazz musician that he has to go just get the signature from, and that's like the whole reason he's in New York, and so I guess it took 9 months, and so he really wants to go into New York, but the little bureaucrat is like, well, final test of will. It's like, no, we just want to ship you home, and you're just going to go home. You don't get to go to New York. And then, like, everyone rallies behind him, and eventually, in the end, he winds up being able to do it and go home. Or go to New York and do his thing. And so he does. He goes to New York and does his thing. And basically, everyone sort of rebels against the leader dude, and, like, the security guards let him go. And then, but they also, the bad guy or the bureaucrat kind of has a chance to like stop him in the end. Like it would have been a big like search every car, every taxi as he's like leaving, and he's like, no, fuck it, I'll just keep going my thing. And like, and the girl basically in the end is like, no, sorry, I'm too sucked into this shit with this old dude that she's having the affair with. So in the end, she's the reason he came for, and then finally gets to go home after living in a terminal for 9 months. So yeah, let me first off say that this is an abysmal movie. It's just terrible, stupid, and just what a bad movie. I'm gonna tell you the big twist in a sec, but first I gotta get a pizza out of the oven. I'll be right back. So like first. Oh, here's the big my personal Shyamalan moment at the end. I was pretty sure by the time I'd finished the movie that I recognized the culprit. I felt like this before. I know who's doing this to me. This is that weasel, Wes Anderson, isn't it? I hate Wes Anderson movies. They're the fucking pits. They're the worst thing you could watch, and for some reason, everyone who has otherwise good taste loves them, and like, loves them. Like, oh my god, Wes Anderson is a genius. Wes Anderson's an idiot. I hate him. It's terrible. Why do I'm probably gonna fall for that trick again, because, like, I still haven't seen Life Aquatic, and I love Bill Murray. It looks so appealing in a preview sort of way, but it's fucking Wes Anderson. Oh god, I hate Wes Anderson. Rushmore is everything that's wrong with everything. Wes. Anyways, I became positive that I was watching a Wes Anderson movie. Then the Shyamalan ending at the end was, holy shit, that was a Spielberg?
That was a 2-hour Spielberg movie? Movie's over 2 hours. And, no, I won't accept that. Because Spielberg, I respect the man. I don't like Spielberg movies much, typically, or I don't approve of them or whatever. But I mean, his deal is he's the man. He's the biggest guy in Hollywood, and he makes big ass blockbusters, and they're usually family friendly. He kind of defines like the status quo of like what a big mainstream movie is supposed to feel like, and has ever since he was a kid 3,000 years ago. Like he's a blockbuster machine, and unlike most blockbuster machines, he's not tied to a particular franchise, or his franchise is like the default movie. So, and he can do heartwarming, he can do actiony. Everything feels big and name brand when he's involved. And that was a Spielberg movie, because it did not feel Spielberg. I mean, I could see some Spielberg points in retrospect. I mean, I should have known Tom Hanks, but no, it felt more like a Wes Anderson movie. And let me now kind of get into a little like what I'm complaining about here. So, Wes Anderson, like, it's like the characters, nothing makes sense. The characters are not believable. The situations are not believable. But they're also not absurd enough to like, it's like, they're not surreal. They're not absurd. It's just like bad writing being passed as some sort of stylized thing. And not just nonsense. And like the characters, it's like he's trying to create a scenario in which like he's relying on real world things to make sense, to tell the story, and then he just breaks rules constantly, and just like it doesn't make sense. The pieces don't like. Anyways, Terminal. That all throughout the Terminal, every 3 seconds, you're like, oh, am I supposed to be taking this serious? The only real way to the value of this film is the concept. Like, wow, imagine a guy who fell through an administrative loophole and wound up stuck living in an airport. That would be crazy. And then it provides a almost plausible scenario in which that happens. And then it's like, enjoy. Okay, premise set up. Now what do you got? Now the movie actually starts. Like, what are you going to do with this premise? And so in a way, it sort of falls into like Groundhog Day at some points. It's like there's this guy stuck in this weird situation, and like, what kind of fun can we have with this concept? What iterations are we going to have with him being stuck there? And so on that basis, and that little shell right there, the interactions aren't very good. The airport stuff isn't very good. And, like, it doesn't follow airporty rules. Like, 1 second things make sense, 1 second there's a glaring hole that doesn't make sense that you're just supposed to wink at or something. It's like either you're presenting a situation that's interesting because he's trapped, and, you know, you've meticulously set that up, or you're not. And it just kind of goes back and forth. Like, all right, some examples. Like, can he walk out or can he not? Are there guards? I mean, would he be able to? There's sort of, it gets locked into this battle of wills with the villain, the guy who runs the airport, and like the whole premise seems to be like, why won't the guy just leave? But sometimes the premise is the guy can't leave, and I'm not going to let him leave. And like all of the big high points of the movie, kind of like all of them have glaring holes to just bother the entire time. So yeah, there's the whole like I hit earlier, like he's given a chance to leave
on the assumption that he would have already left by now. But just to make sure that the guy leaves, he removes the armed guards, which would have permitted him from leaving. So that was dumb. And then he somehow senses, even though there's no reason for him to sense. I didn't even sense it as a viewer, that the little bureaucrat whose only problem at that point is just make this guy somebody else's problem. He just wants the guy to leave the terminal illegally and not be his problem anymore. Why? Does he plan on betraying him and making sure he gets arrested after that happens? I didn't see that coming, but what's weird is Tom Hanks does. He sits there and he's like, oh, something's not right about this. And he just has this information that he shouldn't have had that makes him decide to live in an airport. Like, oh, no, I'm going to live in this airport. And then, there's a point, there's kind of a high point where there's some other vaguely Eastern European-y guy who is basically the bureaucratic dude is being reviewed by bosses who might promote him or whatever, and while that's happening, this other passenger from the Eastern Bloc is attacks and is freaking out in I guess customs or whatever, and has a weapon and is threatening to hurt people because of a mix-up over some pills they're trying to take away from him. And so they go to Tom Hanks, the bad guy goes to Tom Hanks begging, please sort this out, you're the only one who can speak his language. And then he goes and Tom Hanks tries to sort it out, and it's another bureaucratic nightmare. The guy's trying to bring medicine to save his dad's life, but there's from one country to another country and just a layover in the U.S., but somehow the U.S. layover thing is going to they're going to take his pills because he doesn't have the right paperwork for them, and the pills are going to save his dad's life, and what's his name's translating all this, and basically the guy begs. At any point, what really would have happened, they would just shot this guy, because he's just got a knife and he's attacking people. They would have shot this guy, or at least detained him, and then he would have gone to jail, and nothing else would have mattered. But for some reason, it's no, let's bring in a guy who can understand him, and they send him into the room, and he doesn't have any hostages, or he's just sort of standing in there with a knife while guns are outside, and Tom Hanks translates everything, and then he comes out and begs and says, I'm sorry, and conveniently, because he comes out to beg for the pills, somehow that now they can grab him because he's begging, and they couldn't just grab him before, and they tackle him and everything, and then basically as they're dragging away, Tom Hanks has this clever thing, because apparently he's been in the airport so long that oh, I understand customs laws, and so he's wait, if it's not for his dad, but for a goat, the paperwork won't require. There's no paperwork required, and the guy can keep his pills, and everything's fine. And so he says that, oh, I mistranslated. He wasn't saying dad; he was saying goat. And the bad guy's why are you doing this? He doesn't. You don't know him. But why are you helping him? And then because the guy picks up on it and says, yes, it's for my goat. He's fine. And no, not fine. Not give him back his pills and send him on his way. The guy attacked people. There's no way in hell he doesn't just go to jail. The whole thing. And there's no way he didn't get shot. He's sitting in the room with a knife, no hostages, just waiting for them to get the interpreter so they can negotiate the pills when he has no leverage. That scene was just bananas stupid. And then the big thing in the end is after he has legal status again and stuff, there's this big test of wills where the guy, he wants to go to New York, and the guy's no, we're sending you home. And he wants to go home, but he has to do the jazz musician thing first. It's no, New York, and then the guy basically says he's going to fire all of his friends. And the mean Indian janitor guy it turns out he's like wanted for assault back in India, and if he gets fired, and he's gonna get deported, and he's gonna have to go to prison for stuff. So he's like, fine, I'll go home. You win. Battle of Wills won. And then somehow all his friends find out about it, and the Indian guy goes and gets himself deported by like going onto the tarmac and like getting arrested and everything, just to show him, to help him win this Battle of Wills, so he actually gets to go to New York City like he's been wanting to do, instead of just going home. But here's the thing: the guy's fine for money. They actually tell he's making like $22 an hour once he gets his contracting job, and you could tell he had money before that. Like, there's no reason why sending him home instead of letting him go would even be a thing. Like, fine, send him home. He gets another airplane ticket, and clearly time doesn't matter. He just spent 9 months. Like, he's missed any appointments or whatever. Just go home, get another airplane ticket. I think the movie's supposed to be in JFK. Go through fucking LaGuardia, or wherever. Just like, the whole point is that one guy is, like, blocking him from getting to go for no good reason. It's unclear also. Apparently, like, he has to get the guy's signature on some papers before he can go. But, it didn't really... But, it never shows him getting the signature after he sets up that he needs it. But maybe there's something in there I missed about, I don't know. It doesn't seem to follow its own laws at all. Like, you don't understand. Like, constantly you're just saying, well, why doesn't this character just do this? Like, it creates problems that aren't there, and, creates solutions and for those problems, and then shows characters just ignore that possible solution and just go, it's like, nope, the story is taking us in this ridiculous direction. Okay. So, the characters never make sense, because most of them are shallow. The dialogue is terrible. The characters are thin, and also, the feel, it's not funny consistently. It's not like a Will Ferrell film or even a Rob Schneider film, but it tries overall for lighthearted humor, and then there's lots of slapstick, but not enough slapstick to define the film. Just occasionally, Hanks walks into a wall for no reason, or someone slips on some wax and falls down. Lots of that, and there's the language thing. The movie would have been so much better if he starts out speaking English. If they didn't make such a central thing of the movie about and his character overcoming his language barrier. He gets here early on in the beginning. They're like, "Can we get you an interpreter?" Well, we wait to get you an interpreter, and they never get him an interpreter. So how the hell is there not? And they illustrate that basically he speaks Russian. He speaks a language interchangeable with other Eastern Bloc countries. In this major New York airport, they're not able to get a Russian translator, but apparently that's a job that exists as airport administrative language translator, and New York City's airport doesn't have a guy for Russian. Really? Seriously? That's dumb, but whatever. So yeah, he doesn't speak the language of the people who are giving him all the administrative crap, and so they tell him all, and they demonstrate that he doesn't understand what everyone's told him, and then later on, and then they just turn around and do the exact opposite. Things that they demonstrate him not understanding, people telling him, he goes and demonstrates 5-10 minutes later that he does understand. So it's originally he didn't understand, and now he does. And the whole first chunk of the movie is I'm sitting there worrying, what parts does he understand, what parts does he not? Does he realize the situation he's in? And I'm sorting through that, and I'm keeping track, and it's distracting me. And I'm keeping track of it better than the people making the movie. And then eventually they do kind of a Deus Ex Machina, where one night he sits down and essentially learns English. He off of a pamphlet. And then after that, you're supposed to forget about the language barrier, which fine. I would love it if the language barrier was never there in the beginning. It just distracts from the story. But even after that, way too much of the jokes and just the story are about, ha, look, there's a language barrier. He doesn't understand, or he's mispronouncing it, or he's pronouncing it in a confusing way. And, so, I mean, there's definitely some, perfect strangers syndrome going on, Cousin Larry, where it's just oh, he's foreign, so he's stupid. Oh, he's out of the loop because he says the words funny. And, I mean, I'm not above laughing at foreigners for being different, but, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I don't want to feel terrible. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Or something intentionally offensive, not cute. Oh, I don't know. So the language thing was just, such a tax in the movie. It's 2 hours long. So much of what this movie has going for it is you sympathize with the main character because you feel stuck. Because it's 2 hours long and, the plot isn't in a hurry. All those little things I told you about, his romance, his friend's romance, his rivalry, they just show you they develop in these meandering little clusters. Times it feels a little bit like Amelie in that way. So then, there's the dumb romance thing. So they start throwing in an obligatory romance with this flight attendant who's traveling the world. And it's kind of the best part. Some way she's an unbelievable, stupid, 80s, style. There's something about the film's romance, and it might just be the screen music, that feels very dated, old romantic comedy, and this flight attendant, the romance feels very fake and movie-ish. And that's where it starts to get some Spielberger grease on it. Is the cheesy music and the way they do the romance with this girl. But there are some okay lines there that it works way too hard to set up, and there's this whole Napoleon and Josephine thing where she's obsessed with Napoleon. There's this whole theme they weave in there with unnecessary history references to Napoleon. But I mean, maybe it just spoke to me. I had a pretty torrid love affair with a flight attendant once, and one of the only things about airports this movie really seems to understand is the whole flight attendant lifestyle thing, and the way that lots of them just get pulled into this life where they can't really put down roots, and they're sort of traveling sex symbols that have relationships all over the world, but men don't really take them seriously, and they wind up watching their life go away. And that, I have met that character through multiple flight attendants I've known because there's a whole subculture there you get pulled into. And so I was really sympathetic for her, and I was I don't want a romance. I don't care about Tom Hanks' character enough to want to see him get together with somebody. He's not bad. He's just not really likable. But fine. They put so much energy into it that and they feel really bad for the character. They make her feel sad and everything, and it's fine. You're gonna give me a cheesy romance with cheesy music. I'm there. Root, go get her. And they do all the motions of a big 80s movie, like Crocodile Dundee, or just any stupid 80s movie, where of course they get together in the end, and but in the end she just goes back to her guy and throws herself waiting for the married guy, and he doesn't get her, and by that point it's I don't care about his jazz thing. I don't care what happens to Tom Hanks' character. He still, after 2 hours, I like him okay. He hasn't won me over to where I'm invested in any of his problems. About the only one is you just default into basic, alright, well, the main thing about the movie is he gets the girl in the end. It's cheesy, it's stupid, but fine. If that's what we're doing here, that's what we're doing. And he doesn't get the girl in the end. And they don't, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you misunderstood. No, I'm just too much of a mess. I sort of suspect that this is, that thing. I hate morality in movies. I hate it when when directors just sort of feel like they have to hammer out justice. How convenient. To people, to their characters, that they have to the first time I ever really became aware of this was I was doing the commentary or reading an article or something. The guy who directed The Warriors, and the best character in The Warriors is Ajax, played by a very young James Remar, and he's like an awful but likable, just monster of a character. And he's like, Remar, it takes him out of the action too soon in the movie, and so Remar's like, yeah, part of me really wishes that we could have kept him in there longer, but I just felt that the character, because of these things he's done, blah, 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 he has to meet his justice. And I've heard it in Breaking Bad, where they feel like they have to punish the characters for their mistakes. Often, that's not what happens. It's not real life. You're not telling the story of what you want to see happen. You're telling life doesn't, good guys, bad things happen to good people and vice versa. And if you want your story to have any real relevance, show that and explore that, and don't make it where in the end all the good guys either get avenged or get good things, and the bad guys all get their lumps in the end. No, that's not poignant. That's dumb. And I suspect that what we're seeing here, there's the whole, if you cheat in a movie, you get punished. It's sort of like in horror movies, if you have sex, you die, kind of. They just seem to, directors and audiences sort of crave it. I think there's this thing that happens where if you cheat, you get punished. You can't be happy if you cheat on someone. And, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm reading it into it, but I think that's dumb. Where they present a character and they make you accept them in spite of their cheating and with their cheating, and sort of understand their cheating, and then be but in the end that character can't be happy because they fucking pick a side, dude. And I think they just sort of punished this character morally for cheating and being a part of the guys cheating. Whatever the reason, it's just sort of unsatisfying in a movie that isn't edgy enough to earn the right to fail to satisfy you. It tells you, no, this is cheese and slapstick and silliness and not profound. And we're just going to give you tropes that you already know and major chord music, and it's fine, alright, do that. And if you want to build up to this expectation and then take it away from me, and for that to be the big build-up of the movie, then fine, do that. But to try to have their cake and eat it too. They build up this thing with the girl, it just kind of falls apart and doesn't work out, and she doesn't ever get to be happy, and neither does Tom Hanks doesn't get her. But then he gets everything else. He wins his battle of wills against the guy, and he gets to go and fulfill his stupid destiny with his dad, getting these signatures from this jazz guy, blah, 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 and this one guy won't write him back. It's just so empty and hollow. It's not why real people do things. They could have given him real problems if they wanted me to relate to him, but they didn't. They gave him this quest from a dead father involving jazz musicians, which that's not a real person's story. That's something that people invent around themselves and then tell people to get laid. But real people's problems are if his dad needed help in some way, or but not like my dead dad. I'm doing this quest for him. Blah blah. Like, this is a movie about a guy in an airport. Like, we have to like see him filling out forms and shit. It's not mythical enough to have a quest. So yeah, the romance goes kaput, and that was sort of like, fulfill me. You fulfilled everything else. Fulfill the fucking romance for us. But no, it doesn't happen like that. And then he just goes home. So bad character, stupid dialogue, stupid scenario, stupid story. The whole Kafkaesque bureaucratic limbo thing. It undermines it every 3 seconds with just like, oh, silly. He slips down and gets hurt, and like, you can't take it seriously, and like, there's no like yearning, haunting feeling it cultivates, because like every time it tries, it goes silly, and none of the characters have realistic motivations. They're like, and their dialogue's not good. Story's stupid. It lasts 2 hours and meanders. Nothing makes sense. The music's dated. A lot of it just feels dated. It's like, this is a 2000s film, but like it has no excuse to be made the way it was, like after the 80s or early 90s. So yeah, I hated this film. It was really bad. I'm giving it a 2 because it deserves a 2. I'm going to be an optimist and hold hope that I'll eventually get to watch some shit that's even worse, and I'm holding that one spot open for it. I'll keep you posted. But thank you so much. I guess I'm just going to keep on coming at you.